new background, and we both have our black t-shirts on.
Yeah, baby, let's go. It's Monday, baby. It's Monday.
It is.
Yeah, you want me to kick it off?
Absolutely.
I'll tee you up. All right. Hey, Brett Swarts here with Jason K. We're shooting another podcast and going through ways to really understand and consult in a higher level and helping people and helping ourselves too really understand ourselves. And so we went through success coaching with Eli, and for some reason Jason, I always forget his last name, but we'll talk about where to
Eli
find
Shaw.
him. Yeah, Shaw.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll talk about where to find him as well. But we're just kind of we're going to share some wisdom with you today and do a little bit of role play and do a little bit of just overview of what we've learned. Jason K, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yourself, Brett?
I'm fantastic. It's we're shooting on Monday, uh, June the 5th, and this is a I think it was an 8-part series about
Yep.
Jason. But sometimes some of the weeks are broken up into two. So this is, I guess, 3.1 because the first, or 3.2 because we did 3.1 last week. It was a bigger sanction on chunking, and so now we're going into values. And so let's kick it off here, Jason K. Jason, what when I say values, what do we mean here in the context of what we're talking about with Eli's coaching?
So Eli described values as something that is extremely important to us on a very deep subconscious level. Um, he gave us two things. They dictate what we spend our time on, and they're a filter through what we judge our own actions and other people's reactions. Generally speaking, it's what motivates us.
Okay. And so a value, if I'm hearing you, it sounds like um these are let me try and get on my notes too. There was at the subconscious level. It's important to understand, right? So it's not necessarily what
Yep.
we're thinking, actively. And 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 the generally it's what motivates us. And there's two things that they do, right? You said they do what?
They dictate what we spend our time on, and they're a filter through what we judge our own actions and other people's actions and
Yeah, that's
react.
interesting, right? Like we naturally spend our time on what we spend our time on.
Yep.
Um, and they filter through which we judge our own actions and other people's reactions, right? So, okay, good. So, how do we discover a value, Jason?
Oh, well, of course, as with anything with Eli's material, it's asking the right question. In this question, I can't speak. In this circumstance, what you would typically do is, well, what's important to you about whatever that value is? It could be, in my case, selling single family homes. Well, what's important to you about having a backyard? Explain to me what a good sized backyard looks like to you. What else is important to you about that backyard or whatever it is?
Yep, absolutely. So it's simply asking a question, and that question, um, you're taking great, obviously great notes, and you're basically in a discovery phase. You don't want to assume you understand the value, right? And by the
Right.
way, a theme that we learned through Eline through the entire coaching was if they author it, they own it. But Jason, if you or I as the the person who's consulting or the person who's helping with their real estate needs or their exit planning, if we author it, guess what, Jason?
They don't own it. It's us, and we're not the one buying the house.
Right. And have you ever felt
So,
like Jason, and I know I have to slow down when I do
yep.
this, or even when you are the consumer, or you're the customer, or you're considering buying something, and somebody is giving you all of the answers, especially if they're giving it to you quickly, and even though you actually probably agree with the content, you perhaps feel like you're being sold to, or you're being pressed, or things are going too fast. It's almost like you know you know if you were dating somebody or something, or before you even were dating them, right? It was all going moving too fast. Like, whoa, coming on too fast, right? Um,
Yep.
talk about that dynamic there a little bit there.
Well, let's use I want a two-car garage. It's like, okay, so I'm assuming you've got fancy cars that you want to keep in the garage. It's like, all right, so you've got lots of money and blah, 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 and you love your cars. It's like, no, 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 no. I've got the minivan and we've got 3 kids with bikes. I want the garbage cans inside. It's don't assume anything. I always ask, yeah, someone might come back and go, hey, yeah, I've got a Maserati or I've got a Corvette or whatever it is, and a Harley, and I want to keep those in the garage, and the daily beater can be outside. Great. you know Now if they have those toys, you can start asking, what else do you need in your garage? Because you're not selling a house at that point, you're selling a dream. And that's the whole point about this, is getting to that deeper value, that deeper thing that's important. It's like, well, do you need a workshop? Are you going to be constantly polishing your car with a diaper? Whatever it is.
Yeah, I think this is so key, right? Um, I think this is mislabeling values, is what you just said. When we make assumptions about what we think the other person wants for that, we are mislabeling their values, even if it's a slight shift. Like even Eli would
Yep.
talk about, like literally say back the words that they just said, right? And the way that they said it, and the tone and the tonality, upwards inflection, downwards inflection, whatever it might be, you want to mirror. This is part of what building rapport. And I think the quickest
Yep.
way to get out of rapport, and if you take this to like, sensitive conversations like politics or religion or anything else, right? And you
Yep.
mislabel somebody's belief or values, and I would say values is just before beliefs, right? So you get beliefs and then values, and we're going to go through kind of, and maybe we already have kind of the hierarchy of the way that we as
Mhm.
humans know the world and know each other and such. So when you mislabel the emotions or you mislabel the values, you look like an idiot, right? You look like the fool,
Yeah.
right? You are the fool
I
because
mean,
you're speaking too quickly, and not only that, you're assuming you understand it as if that's a good thing, and it's not. So here's the key: don't mislabel values, don't mislabel emotions. Ask the
right.
question: what's important to you about in my circumstance, having passive cash flow from an asset that you're not having to spend your time and your energy and your stress on, and don't just stop and think, okay, I got the first answer. Help them go deeper. What else is important to you about that? And who else would really would that make an impact on? And what else would you be able to do? And what are some of the things that are going to unlock some of that time and energy and stress? What are you going to do with that? And like, be curious and care and gather all of this information up so that, guess what, your solution that you're going to provide on the back end is going to be tailored to that particular value. You want to add
Yeah.
anything else to that, Jason?
Ultimately, what Eli was describing was creating a hierarchy. Basically, it's an ordered list. So, what's the single most important thing? Great. What's the next one? What's the one after that? Okay, out of everything you've just listed, and you could have only one, what is it? That this way what is the most important thing, what matters to them, and now you can weight everything accordingly. If it's investments, are we talking monthly cash flow, or are we talking ultimate return on investment? Two different things. um, and it could be different things for different people, or different things for the same person at a different point in their life. Same thing with buying a house. So it's going through and just trying to figure out exactly what's the most important thing using their words. And then you don't edit, you don't judge. It's like, okay, this is what you want. Great. This is what we're going to go after. Let me know if something changes. Because
Absolutely.
sometimes,
And let me add to that too. We're adding into the fact that, I'm sorry, my video just got out. We're adding into the fact that, and I tend to do this really fast. Mirror and label the emotion, mirror and label what they just said. And what is a
yep.
mirror? You're simply repeating back the last few words that they said. And what is a label? You're identifying or confirming an emotion, right? And so something along the lines of Jason's with the backyard, and he might have said, I've always dreamed of having a big backyard because that's where growing up, my cousins and my brothers and my sisters, we all would swim and run around with the dogs, and we play volleyball or soccer or badminton or whatever, right? And there's this big backyard, and so you'd say, hey, it sounds like growing up and even now, it's been your dream to have a big backyard to recreate for your family what you experienced, because it's such, and they would say, yeah, it was such a, what makes that so important? And Jason might say, well, it's a core memory. It's when I felt closest with my family. And you would say, sounds like that's when you felt closest with your family. And you literally, it sounds like that was what's the emotion? And the emotion would be, you felt the most connected and the most loved with your families when you're spending time doing those things. And he would say, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. That's the emotion underneath there. Sometimes they may not say the emotion, but that's where you want to be empathetic, and you want to, you might even, kind of tease that emotion out. Especially when it comes to males, right? As males, we tend to not share emotions as much. Females too sometimes, and I know for me, but that would be key. Jason, any thoughts on mirroring and labeling that emotion once you kind of have that value or that vision for what they want?
If, which in many cases in real estate or likewise in investing, you need to do that for each person. So if there's a spouse involved, you need to do it with the spouse. If it's just one person, you need to make sure you get that one person, but you need to get each principal in the transaction. Otherwise, one's going to say, "Hey, I'm not really feeling it here."
Yep, and which leads to your next point, right? Then once you've pulled out the values, you've pulled out what's important. You've obviously, hopefully, you've written these things down, and you've mirrored and built rapport. You want to help them rank them, right? Because guess
Yep.
what? We can't have all things unless we had an unlimited budget, right? And so for her, it could be price. She's very sensitive with the budget. For him, it's hey, the big backyard, the big garage, and park my boat and do all the experiences things. And it's like, okay, hey, it sounds like we've got some things that are different in order. Let's rank these things in different importance and different value for how we're even going to rank them.
Yep.
Let's talk about the plan, and let's kind of go through let's first of all rank them so they can see it, right?
Yep. So we talked a little bit about how this works in the sales consultation when you're trying to figure out an investment or a property someone's interested in. You could also use this equally as well in negotiation. And this really is one of those magic bullets of negotiation, is digging in and finding out, as a real estate agent, as a realtor, finding out what the other side holds nearest and dearest. It may or may not be price. It may or may not be fixing something. It might be ease. So when you know that, you can actually negotiate better for your clients because you know what they're looking for and what the other side's looking for. And one may not care about the other very much. It's like, really, that's all you want? Sure. So knowing that can make your negotiations, even in sales, so much easier.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. And again, I would also just continue to also, mirror and label the emotions behind why they're saying what they're saying. That's going to help continue to build and keep you in rapport. And by the way, the good way to do that would be it sounds like, it seems like, and it feels like. Not inserting the
Yep.
word I in the sense that we tend to say, oh, what I'm hearing is that's not a great way to do it. Hey, it sounds like, it seems like, it feels like, it sounds like that's really important to you. Yeah.
Yep.
It feels like, you have a real key reason for saying that. Um, Good. I'd like that. Yes, using values in sales. Oh yeah, by the way, I also want to just bring that one other thought back to practically how to do this, right? So again, what's most important to me? Um, Creating values. What's most important? What's next? Of the values in the list, which is most important? Of all the remaining values in the list, which is most important? And so it's not only helping them to rank it, but it's going through and really detailing it out. If you can only have one of the remaining values, right? So especially if it's a negotiation, or there's something where if it's a spouse and they're both looking at what house to buy or what thing to buy, or that there's that tension, right? It's not only making sure you hear both sides, right? And understand where they're coming from, but then you help them to rank them, and then you say, hey, if you only had one of the remaining values, which would it be? and that can help them clarify what's really most important to them. And then you want to set a specific goal, and that goal now, I guess, is taking the values to the goal. And you would say, based upon the values we've established, what is the goal for whatever you're trying to accomplish, and what's important to you about that goal, and write everything that comes down to mind for them, with them. So these are ways to do that. Anyone add to that, Jason, or subtract or anything else?
Um, just tying back to the first part of this one with the chunking, this the way you do this is basically through chunking. It's the same basic idea, because if you notice the questions on what's being asked here, it's, tell me about something. Great. What else? What else? For what purpose do you want? What intention is that? What will that do for you? So basically all you're doing is you're taking your chunking that we learned previously and you're focusing it strictly on values. And that's how you get to that higher point of what is the most important thing. And then you focus on that important thing. And as long as everyone is honest with themselves, great. Now, here's the thing in sales. You ask someone, what do you want in a house, especially someone who's never owned a home, they might not know the answer. And that's when you start getting into the iterative piece. And it's like, well, I really want a big backyard. And then all of a sudden they're Googling what they have to do to maintain a big backyard and how much it'll cost. And they're like, okay, maybe a big backyard for me is 1/10 of an acre where I can just let Fluffy out and run around and have a small patch to grow my tomatoes, whatever it is.
Very well said. And for those who didn't catch last week, chunking real fast is you can chunk up or chunk down. To chunk up, you discover the purpose or the intention of the objection, what Jason just said. You can also chunk down to kind of detail and get out the possible discovery of what it is. And so an example of chunking up would be for what purpose, like Jason said. And chunking down would be what specifically. And chunking up would be for what purpose do you want a big backyard? Chunking down would be what is the one thing that you can do that will give you the big backyard. I mean, sometimes it's moving next to like a park, right? I mean, I know where we live, we have a park right around the corner, and then we also have like a school that has a huge grass area that in a sense acts like our second backyard. Now, do we have to, cross the street? But it's not a very trafficky street, right? But it's a huge, big, people walking dogs all the way. It's like, do we need the big backyard, or can we move next to something that? And by the way, they do all the landscaping and all the costs and all the maintenance, and it's very convenient in that scenario.
Yeah.
So.
And we also just touched on the third type of chunking, which is a lateral chunk. And that's, hey, can you give me another example of, or what else? So when you're doing the values, that lateral chunk is getting all those other values. Then what you do with that primary value, the most important thing, that's when you chunk up to find what's the motivation that's driving it, because that becomes powerful. And even just repeating the same question a couple of times, someone's like, wow, no one's ever asked me that question before. I know the first time I did that as a coach, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, seriously, all I did was ask the same question 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in the process of doing it, and I highly recommend practicing in role playing, when you're in the process of having that asked to you and you're going up those levels, it's like, well, I've never really thought about it that way. So yeah, it can be really powerful. Don't underestimate it.
Yep. And so, yeah, let's and we just go. That's perfect. Let's move on to the next section here, which I think you mentioned about negotiations, but
Yep.
I'm going to read a little bit of the coaching here. Learn all that you can about what the other side values most. So important. When creating an offer or a counter offer, focus the main points on the values of the opposing side. So again, first you want to learn what they value most, and then when you're crafting the offer, you're focusing on the main points of what the values of the opposing side. So once a party's values are being met, they're far more willing to reciprocate. They're far more willing to be wanting to know, wow, well, what do they value most, and what's a creative way for us to get there? So you want to talk about that, Jason, or an example there?
Well, I'll use an example that's similar to this, but in reality, I had a client who we closed on last week. We got a great price when we were negotiating the home. We got it well below what it appraised for, what it listed for. We were really happy with that. Agent wanted us to waive all our inspections, and we went, don't really want to do that. And here's why. If there's something major, our only option is to cancel. And we will only go after something major. And in the back of my mind, we had agreed to a dollar figure already, and I did not bring that out. But she just went, fine, major safety issues. We went through, had the inspection of the house. First time I've ever seen it, the circuit breaker was over temping. Now, this was a mountain property. Everything was electric. So the heat, the stove, the dryer, you turn everything on, and we're starting to get over temp. And she's like, so what do you want? A new box? I'm like, no, have an electrician come in. It could be as simple as tightening a screw. I don't know. I don't want to get to that level of detail. We just don't want to run into a situation where this may cause a fire and burn the house down. And the owner's like, oh my God, I had no idea. Absolutely, I'll take care of it. And I think it cost $250. It wasn't a big fix, but it was potentially a big item. Now, could it have been a big cost? Absolutely. But if you listen to what I said and how I broke it down, this was a major safety issue. The house could burn down. What do we want? We just want it fixed. We don't want a new panel. We don't want a new anything. I think he ended up having to replace one of the main breaker for the house.
Yep. That was the key value. You focused on the key value, right, for your client. And then you told them what it was, and you just, hey, just fix it. We don't want to move into a house to think about this. And this, the peace of mind, maybe it could be another part of the value. It's like, no, we don't want to credit for this. We want you just to fix it and just be done with it. We don't have to worry about that. Here's another one too. If it's time, right? So some parties really value time. The timeline is of great importance. So like if party A, timelines of great importance, offering to close a sale on time or early will speak directly to party A's value. I think this is the key here as real estate professionals, as people who help people exit and move and do different things with money. Speak to the value. Like, don't speak to what your value is, right? Speak to what their value is, and very, very specific to how they said it, right? In turn, if party B is asking for something in return to meet a value of their own, then you can speak to that as well. You could say, look, if you're representing either both sides or one side, look, here's the reality. This is super valuable to them, right? I know this other thing might not be as valuable to you, but there is something that is as valuable to you. I think that's a sign of a good negotiator. You're going to find a way to make it meet both sides in a way that both feel great about it. And here's the key: mutual transparency. It's very important that both sides be as transparent and don't hold their cards back. Talk about what's valuable to them. Talk about what's important to them. Mutual transparency about values and negotiate. Go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt for a second, but that is the most important thing with negotiations. It's key. And I ask point blank up front when I'm making an offer on a home or someone's making an offer, what is the single most important thing? And I've had that conversation with my clients. Is it time? Is it money? What is it? Because in some cases, it's like, hey, cash is king. We'll give you 100,000 less and close in 10 days. And that's the most important thing because it's a done deal. It is pretty much guaranteed.
Yep.
Great.
And that's what creates the win-win, and that creates the momentum. Yeah.
Knowing speed and ease, that's what you go for. It may be top dollar. Great. If it's top dollar, let's go a little bit longer and we can play around with things and, go back a year ago when interest rates were low, go through the math and show, hey, the extra $100,000 only really costs you $50 a month. That's one meal going out. Is it worth it to you to get this beautiful mountain home with that view? May or may not, but at least you put it into perspective.
Yeah, and we'll kind of wrap up with this last one here. And it's understanding and using values in a sales consultation. So if you're trying to win a listing, trying to win a deal, trying to win the opportunity to represent somebody, it's really important to understand that sometimes the prospect's values can be in two different places. It can be one, the values that they see in you as representing them or them hiring you, and then B, in the actual process itself, right? So separating those two is very, very important. And so you want to do this by doing a needs analysis. And here's some ways to do that. What are your needs, must-haves, cannot live without? So, and I would say, and this is the part where you would ask that, all right, multiple times. Say, what
Yeah.
are your needs? What are your must-haves? What do you can't live without? And then what else? What else? Let them talk. Let them talk. What else? What else? And let them just basically exhaust their needs, their must-haves, and they can't live without. And then rank them, and then ask them to rank them in order. Okay, of all of those that you just said, would you please rank them in order, scale, or 1 to 10, right? And then what are your wants? Would like to have, and bonuses. Um, and same thing. What else? What else? What else? What else? Rank the order. And some of these are a little bit crossover. But here's the key. Another way to put it is, what are your deal breakers, right? Like, what are the things that are
Yep.
just going to break the entire deal? If all your needs and wants are met, but this problem still exists, you still would not buy. So it's kind of reversing it. But essentially, we're just trying to encapsulate their needs, their wants, can't live without, their deal breakers, make an exhaustive list, and then rank those. Thoughts on that, Jason?
So the way this works in real estate, and you could do it at a really high level, is if you have a client that says, I don't want to live on a busy street, and they pop up a home that is on a busy street, you can, before you even show the home, you have a phone call or a text message and go, hey, just checking in. This is on the corner of a really busy street. Is that still a deal breaker for you? And they may say yes. It's like, okay, then I really don't want to waste your time looking at this home because you're going to fall in love with it and it's a lower price than everything else because it's on the busy street. And now you're going to judge everything to this. Is that what you want? It's kind of like going into the Mercedes dealership before you go to the Ford dealership to buy the car. You're not going to like the new car, which is really kind of cool, just because you saw something better.
Yeah, very well said. And that being said, they get into contract on that deal, and then just to find out 2 weeks into the contract and their inspections, they're like, actually, it's too busy of a street. And you're like, yes, because that's what you said before, and that was part of your subconscious and your values and everything that you talked about for deal breakers. And now it's coming to fruition as you're moving through this. And so, was it busy street, or is it price? Like, how? What's the
Yep.
difference between those two? And as a good real estate professional, you're going to want to, or anyone who's in consultations, you want to bring these things up, help them to rank the order. But if you haven't gone through this process, if you haven't built, a good solid ground to work with somebody, you haven't done the work in the right way, in a consultation way it's really going to make it an amazing experience. Guess what? You're going to waste their time, your time, and it's not going to be what they want. And so, good. All right. Well, we're top of the hour, Jason. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
Easiest way is this lovely thing. So my text and phone number is 720-626-8416. Again, that's 720-626-8416. Or you could try by email, jason@homes-in-boulder.com.
Awesome. Jason K, everybody. And if people want to connect with me, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can also look up Brett Swarts on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. That's BRETTSWARTS, and capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We help people exit highly appreciated assets across the country, as well as do multifamily brokerage and investments. And so anything with investments or exiting or commercial real estate, we are here to help you. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Thanks so much. Hey, we'll be back next week. We're going to be doing we're doing consultations that convert, and it has to do with what's called future pacing. Future pacing. We're really excited to present this to everybody, and we appreciate you attending this series here. Okay, thanks so much, everybody. Talk soon. Bye bye.